Oh.
All right. Hello, everyone. It is July 13th, and tonight we're going to have a discussion about how writing your life story liberates you. I actually started doing this myself last September, and I got through about age 10. So I got to keep going on that, but it was a really great experience, and I'm going to keep going because it ended up being beneficial in a lot of different ways for me. Welcome everyone who's joined us online and those who will watch this afterwards, and we'll watch the recording. We're glad that you're here with us. And all right, Ben, would you go to the next slide? Okay, tonight's objective. Number one, we want to set a goal, okay? And the goal is to write your life story. And we're going to talk about how to write your life story, starting with a firm foundation. Hi, Jamie. Hi, Rosalind. We'll go through fear is not faith. We're going to start at the beginning, impressionable childhood years, teenage years, adulthood. And through all of that, we obviously have various experiences throughout our life, some great and some not so great, but we have the opportunity to see the perfection, even in imperfection, and feel gratitude for different experiences that we have in our lives. So let's get going. Okay. Number one goal, we want to become self-aware and awaken to ourselves. So what does that look like? Number one, are you aware of your own feelings, thoughts, and beliefs? It's an interesting thing to be awake to yourself, to recognize your own thoughts and your ways of thinking. And I don't think I was always aware of that. I am someone who's in my head a lot. And so becoming awake to myself or having self-awareness is, it's a skill that can be practiced. But it also creates an opportunity to have power, which is the next one, awaken to your divine identity and your power to choose. So when you're aware of your thoughts and feelings and beliefs, then you have more of an opportunity to kind of direct and manage your life in a way that is more, in alignment with who you really are and that divine identity that we're talking about. And we hope that each of us will see ourselves as God sees us, with love and acceptance, and that we can choose to stop blaming and stop choosing a victim mentality. And that victim mentality is that things happen to us instead of for us. And being a victim kind of causes us to want to blame or to be justified, different things like that. So when we're more self-aware and we're awakened, then we stand more in our power. And a really important part of this is to be humble, to be humbly allow ourselves to be divinely guided by God's will every day. What a cool thing to choose to do, is to, connect with God daily so that he can help guide everything that's going on in our days. And then we'll feel empowered, fulfilled, and have more spiritual growth. And we create. This is the really big purpose of us being here. Like, we all have agency. And it's not just about learning what's right or what's wrong or what's truth and what's error, but it's about becoming like God and being able to create like he does. And we do that in a small way here on earth. So we understand that we can take advantage or choose to have a victor mentality. And as we do that, we allow ourselves, or we give ourselves the opportunity to influence others, to align with things that are the best for their highest self, and then that influence can expand. And then intentionally choose to live a sweet, focused, simple, fulfilled, purposeful life, regardless of whatever else is happening around us. Anyone have any thoughts about this?
So I have started, I've started like several times, and I actually will have to stop because I can't see something positively yet. And I know as I'm working through something, like I'll be writing my story, and then like I had to stop like several different times, like in my younger years, and like this was really negative, a really bad experience, and have to just kind of hang out there. Like to me, it actually worked as a director for myself. Like, you need work here, because if you can't find gratitude for this yet, and see all of the sides that allow this to be a building experience, and kind of like a box that you check, like this lesson was learned, like I don't even move on, because I feel like that it's actually an indicator to me. We have got work to do here. And so I have made it to probably about 23. That's as far as I've made it so far. And I have been working on it for a long time. And so to me, I actually use it as a tool, as a healing tool, in the sense that I'm like, okay, I've got work to do here. And it has been really helpful and insightful to me, with like trying to, like, where do I even get started kind of thing.
Sure. Yeah.
That's something that I've done.
I love that, Ashley, that you use it as a way to kind of guide you and direct you in understanding where you still need personal growth, emotional, spiritual, personal growth. I love that. And I totally agree with you on that. I'll just say I felt prompted to start writing mine. And so the problem was, because of some childhood traumas, I didn't remember a lot of my childhood. And so I called my mother and I said, Mom, will you help me remember my life? And so I would go over there every Monday for 2 hours just with my computer. And we started before I was even born. Like, what was she going through, and what was her marriage like? And we just started from ground zero. And it was so, it was liberating. It was liberating in a lot of ways. And in some ways it was painful. But again, I love what you said, Ashley. It gives you an opportunity to kind of reflect on the experiences that you've had in your life and see where growth is still needed. Thank you so much for that. Can we move to the next one? Oh, sorry. We'll move. Is that Teresa?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead, Teresa.
I think it's amazing how many people are not self-aware and do not consider where they're at, what they're thinking, why they're thinking what they're thinking, what their beliefs and thoughts are. It seems like, to some extent, I always have been somewhat self-aware, but life can become overwhelming sometimes. And that's when I need to remind myself, or establish more of a habit of coming back to that place.
Of being self-aware. Yeah. So good. Because it is a powerful place to be. It really is. Otherwise, we're just kind of flying by the seat of our pants. And like I said at the beginning, I think many people just think that life is just happening around them and that they don't have a lot of control over that. And when you become self-aware and awaken to yourself, you do realize that you have the power to create something beautiful out of your life. So, all right, let's move to the next slide. Okay, so why do we write our story? I think we talked a little bit, we touched on a few things, but let's go through some of these here. I think it helps us become more organized and have more clarity. So it can help us reflect on familial traditions or social, traditions and things like that. And we get to decide, like, if those are serving us well still or not, or if we change them. And that's where we can become more awakened and self-aware. So we can change our old perspectives about things. We can look back on something that was probably difficult, whether it was trauma or some sort of abuse or some, or just a hard experience, and maybe a social thing in school, or a family, a family tradition or a family behavior that was passed on, and you can reflect back on it, because even though some things are really not fun in the moment, if we've learned to overcome it somehow, we can look back and see the strength that we've gained from an experience. So in that type of mindset, we develop deeper gratitude and divine wisdom as we connect to God and to our Savior, Jesus Christ, to help us heal and overcome those past traumas or trials or experiences that were difficult. But let me say this too. I think there's a lot of joy that we can look back on. And I think that's one of the points, is not just to focus on the pain, but to see the joy that we actually did experience. Because sometimes I think as adults, we look back and it's so easy to latch onto the negative and forget to see the positive. So I think that's an important thing to do. And then we learn the lessons that God intended for us to learn. So I love how Jade says that God doesn't waste our experiences. They're always there for a reason. Whether we choose to learn it or not is up to us. But when we do, we can see his hand.
Yeah.
Any thoughts right there?
Good, thank you. How are you?
I can tend to
Yeah, she's just following.
Really think about the negative, because I feel like that I know that I need to work through them.
Yes.
And I actually feel like that's a really good reminder for me, especially, is because even though I feel like that I'm a positive person, I feel like that somehow these
she does
things that we're working through, because we're giving them so much energy, that's what we focus on. And so I think that a more balanced approach is to see the joy and to see the things that we need to work on.
Yeah, I like that. Thank you so much for that. Any other thoughts? Okay, so we're going to keep going. Number 5, look forward with hope to a more beautiful future. So if we see what didn't work or wasn't wonderful and great and, in the past, and we don't want to repeat it, then we can choose it to have a different story, right? I think about that, and I share that with people a lot, is that your life is your story. You're writing it, and you get to change it at any moment, at any time. You can choose to change it. So, and that happens a lot of times. We begin to heal and have closure from past events, and then we let go of that heaviness, and we get to choose something lighter, brighter, more joyful. We get to choose to behave and think and act and speak in different ways than we may have in the past. And when we do that, it opens us up to spiritual insight, and we get to see the world through different eyes. Okay. I love the scriptures that talk about an eye single to the glory of God. And when we, strive to be in that type of mindset, I think we do see the world through different eyes. We can have a more divine approach to people and to situations and circumstances, even of the past. And then we choose to create a legacy to leave with our families that is, more magnified. That's my theme, is a life magnified, more beautiful and bigger and better and more meaningful and purposeful than maybe what we experienced ourselves in the past. So we get to choose that for our own family, our children, and our extended family, if we can have a positive influence in the way. And then ultimately, this is very true for me. Number 9 is to experience forgiveness. And I'll tell you, 20 years ago, I thought I knew what forgiveness was. And then I learned more about it again, probably 10 years ago. And then I've learned more about it again, just in this last year, regarding the same experience that I had as a child. And so I think there are phases and degrees of forgiveness that we learn over time. But as we write our life story, we put those things in front of our face instead of just ignoring them or just getting through them. We can put them in front of our face and face them. And with God, we can, and our Savior Jesus Christ, we can learn to transcend, things that weren't so great in the past. All right. So who wants to write their life story? Has anyone else started writing their life story?
Deb, can you hear me?
Yeah, Ginger, I know you gave me yours and I haven't read it yet, but I have it in an envelope and I can't wait. But what was your experience? Yeah.
I wrote a long one a long time ago because my daughter pretty much made me. And that's when I was going to Utah every other week taking care of grandkids. But it was a great experience.
So did she interview you?
No, she just gave me papers with questions. And it's a book she gave me that you just added things to it, but I don't know. Then she typed it up and I thought she was going to present it to me as a gift, but she doesn't even know where it is.
Well, I'm sure it'll show up at just the right time. And I'm sure it was a lot about the experience of doing it, but that's a cool idea to have prompts to help you, trigger your memory and help you identify, things from your life. All right, let's go to the next slide. Okay, so how do you do it? Yeah, it is a little daunting. It's like, where do we start? So I really like this. Start with a strong foundation in God's love and eternal life. So a recognition of who you are, and who our Heavenly Father is. I think that helps prepare us, as we sit down to walk through our life, and understanding that this life isn't the end. And like I said, it's our story, and we can start new chapters at any time. We can choose to see things in a new perspective. So journaling is great. I don't know. I'm a journaler. I have been since I was 11 or 12 years old. And I do not want my family to read those journals yet. But you can have a notebook, or you can have a journal on the computer. So I have a personal journal that I keep next to the side of my bed, and I write in that one a lot of experiences or things that are happening in daily life. But then I also have one on my computer where I keep a lot of, I call it my inspirations and enlightenment journal. And so when I have inspiration come to me, divine downloads, or inspirations that are really poignant to me, then I put those in that journal on the computer. And sometimes they cross over, but so have an objective point of view. So you get to be the observer in your life, and use cardamom oil. Does anyone, Jamie, can you tell us a little bit about cardamom oil and why that's good for being the observer in your life?
Yeah, so sometimes when we live our life, we kind of get stuck in our heads and we can't really see outside the box. So cardamom to me is to get outside of that box so that you can view yourself in a different light. That way you can see what you can do to improve yourself. And that way you can self-reflect without having those attachments. So yeah, I like to use it in all different ways. So apply, diffuse, mainly diffuse. I love to diffuse it.
Yeah. Well, I think about it. It's a gut oil, and it's also a respiratory oil. So I think about responsibility, and I also think about like being able to breathe easy through life. So I really like what you said about not being attached. Like, we place responsibility where it belongs, and we can look at the past and breathe through it, not hold our breath. Because I think sometimes we look back and we're like, ooh, I don't know if I want to face this. I don't know if I want to deal with this. But I think maybe what you're saying or helping us understand is that cardamom oil helps us do that and not be attached to it, like be able to see it in a new light and see ourselves in a new light. So that's kind of a cool thing. Okay, so when you're writing, don't worry about grammatical or spelling errors. This is not a time where we need to criticize or scrutinize how we write or what we're writing. This is purely explorational. Is that a word? Exploratory. That's the word. So, so just be open and just let yourself go where you go and write what you write. And I think if we have that kind of outlook on it, we can go back and read it and really learn something. Learn more than what we would have if we were overthinking too much about, like, who's going to read this? Is my family going to read this? It's really more about what you think and you feel. And HD Clear oil is recommended there. I'm going to go to Jamie again. I think you're the oil expert next to Jade.
So for HD Clear, to me, HD Clear is a perfectionist oil, which
That's
is
right.
yeah. So it is one of the oils that comes up regularly for me.
How did I know that?
Yeah, so I do overthink a little bit because I want things to be just right. And
Yeah.
I think that's the problem, because if you want to keep moving forward, you need to be okay with all of your flaws and be okay with all your zits and all. Like, love it, love it, love it. So it does help you move forward in the sense where you're letting all of the details go and just picturing the goal and move forward to that. And so you're just doing whatever it is to get to the goal and not really thinking about all the tiny little details that's,
In
not good
between.
enough. Yeah.
I love that. And this phrase came to my mind. It's like, love yourself, blemishes and all. Blemishes and all. And just move through, right? Just write what you think and what you feel and don't judge it in any way.
Yes.
Yeah? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, and then just capture thoughts and feelings and translate them into words. So spearmint oil is, isn't this about clarity of speech? Yeah, clarity of speech. So being
It's
able to write them
articulating.
down.
It's
What was that?
it's to help you articulate your words and
Yes, yeah,
have confident speech.
yeah, very good. So I think that's good to feel confident in just letting things flow. So, okay, so you'll get better as you practice. Take as long as you need. And then I was just thinking, it's good to set aside time for this. And that's really number 9. And so set aside time to actually like intentionally write your story and put in the effort because it's worth it. Yeah, go ahead, Jamie.
Can I just say that I think sometimes it could be difficult for people to write their story because they may feel like it's insignificant in comparison to other people. And what I just want to say to everyone is that you are special in your own way, and your story can touch another person that's like you. So every single person is special but different. So, you can have your own specialty as well. So every person's story is just as important, and every person's story is just as interesting and fantastic. So just write your story and it will reach the people it needs to reach.
The right people, right? Yeah. It's funny that you say that because I used to think, oh, Jade has this magnificent story. And like, how would anyone ever want to listen to me? And it wasn't like a jealousy thing. And it wasn't like a she's better than me thing. It wasn't that at all. It was just like, she has an amazing story to tell from her childhood, being a refugee and all of that. And so that little antagonistic voice in your head says your story isn't valuable. And I know differently, but I know differently intellectually. I just needed to learn that emotionally, spiritually. And I agree with you. Everyone's story is unique and we are all connected. So there is a purpose for your life, and a deeper meaning for your life is how we affect those in our circle of influence, however big or small that is. So yeah, thank you so much for that, Jamie.
Yeah.
So ask yourself,
Stop it.
find out questions like, why did I feel that? You know, why did that affect me like that? And maybe we even reflect on people that were around us at the time, you know, about how they felt. And then, like I said, commit to yourself, set aside time, regular time to put in the effort to write. Even if it's, you know, I'm going to spend 15 minutes on Monday mornings at 10 o'clock. If that's what you can do, then that's what you can do. If you can do an hour, that's great too. But just making the commitment is a really important thing to do. Oh, Jade says at least a few times a week, but I think whatever you can commit is great. So, and then write chronologically and look for repeating patterns. Oh, that is a really cool thing to do. I didn't think to do that, but so you start from the beginning and then you look for those patterns. Yeah, Jamie.
What really helps me find that story of mine is to compare the difference of my growth. So it's like how I was before and how I am now. And that really helps me find something significant of mine to write about.
I love that. So yeah, so you can see how you might have behaved in a certain situation when you were 18 years old versus when you're 30 or something like that. Yeah.
Yes.
So yeah, I think that's a really cool thing. And I think what happens, because Jamie, as you were talking, what happens is that we begin to do that in our everyday life too. We'll experience something, and then in this ability to be self-aware, as this just happened to me this last week. Sunday was an interesting day, and I could have reacted or behaved in a certain way, and I just thought, no, hold on to that and live through it. And then I got to the next day, and like all the things that I thought, like I need to have a talk with this person and you know, like we need to find some common ground, we need to find some balance, which is true, but it naturally came, I think. And it's about forgiveness and tolerance and kindness and compassion. We approach things, I think, differently as we reflect on the experiences that we've had, you know, with relationships or circumstances and things like that. And if we can just take this, you know, this moment to be self-aware, sometimes we realize that either it's not as big of a deal as we thought it was, or there's a different way to handle something, or even what it was for me, it was a different way of thinking about something that happened the day before. And I think, yeah, as we do that, as we write our life and we notice repeating patterns, we do become more self-aware, and we're able to implement those kinds of skills in our lives now. So, and that is, it really feels like freedom, doesn't it? Because the situations and the experience don't have to control us anymore. We get to choose how to respond. Beautiful. Okay, next slide. Thank you, Ben. Okay, start with a firm foundation. We are all beloved children of God with a power and purpose. I think that ties right into what Jamie was saying, that all of us are unique. We all have a purpose here, and that with God, we are powerful to choose. We existed before we came to Earth. Like, life didn't start just here. And this life that we're living is transitional to the next phase of our eternity, which I think is such a beautiful thing. And it kind of helps you have improved perspective, both on the past and the present, and also on the future. So Earth is a place of learning and growth, and it helps us to learn. We're here to learn to master the elements and become more like God, which is, I think, that it's awesome. He is a joyful God. I think he's all about freedom and liberation and creation. And so understanding that that's what we're here for is such a beautiful thing. This existence that we're living right now is a blip. So we can strive to not get distracted and caught up in all the small things that really don't matter. And actually some small things really do matter, but small things that are in like positive, like kindness, compassion, love, truth, those things practiced every day can add up over time. And those things do help us live in more joy. So we can understand that we chose our experiences. Oh, okay. So there's a book that I recommended that I read recently and recommended to Jade called Remembering Wholeness. And we are both like, I'm just in love with this book, along with Jade's. Like Jade's book and this book and scriptures are like, whoo, so good. Anyway, she talks a lot about this idea that agency is a law of God tells me that we had some choices. We had input into what we would experience in our life here on earth. And so to me, that's such a beautiful thing, and it helps me have a better perspective. It's like, if I chose this experience, why did I choose it, and what was I to learn from it? And so that is such a helpful thing when we're trying to, or working through healing of the past. And we actually cheered. We cheered for joy to have this opportunity to come to this earth. And God didn't leave us alone. We have a heart compass that guides us to joy and peace and love. It's our natural it's our divine inclination to move into joy, peace, and love. And then Jesus Christ's atonement is sufficient, and it allows us for infinite do-overs. Isn't that a comforting thought? How do you feel about that when you hear that Christ's atonement, like he provides a way for us to like fix the wrongs, learn from them and become better through them? Does anyone have any thoughts about that? Feelings about that?
I just felt really loved, because I feel like that, the kind of Heavenly Father that provides a Savior for us so we can have infinite do-overs, must really want for us to come home, and so is going to provide every opportunity that he can to justly do so. And I feel overwhelming gratitude for that, because there has just been so many instances where I have felt just protected, and I'll just share this really quickly. So I cracked the back of my iPhone, and we just moved to this new city. It's called Mount Dora, and we moved here not long ago, and I had to drive about 45 minutes to a city that I had never driven to get it repaired. before a trip so that I could use it and get it wet and take pictures. Well, I was unable to get it repaired for some reason or another. And I actually sat in the parking lot and I was really disappointed, and I like cried for a minute, and I was frustrated, and I drove home. Well, my husband took me just 2 days ago to the Apple store at a different place to get it repaired. And whenever I got it repaired, I forgot my Apple password, and I could not hook up to Wi-Fi to get my phone started. So if I would have been able to do that at the place that I drove 45 minutes away to, I would have had no way to call my husband to come pick me up, and I would have no way to get home. And so I realized that later, that Heavenly Father, he protects us so perfectly. Sometimes that we're just like completely unaware of, you know what I mean? And I feel like, whenever we do go back to heaven, we're going to be like, and we actually see with like true perfect eyes, we're going to see how many times and understand how many times he loved us so perfectly. And to me, that does make me feel seen and so grateful. And I'm humbled and just so grateful for it.
Thank you. I feel the same. I think it's such a comforting thing to know that and to understand that God is our perfect partner, that he's always there for us, and that we are enough, and we never have to feel alone. We might feel lonely sometimes, but we never have to feel alone if we understand who God is and how much he loves us. And I think that's such a beautiful thing. And I love the infinite do-overs, because I don't know about you, but I make mistakes a lot. And I'm grateful that every day that I can go to him and say sorry, and then make a different choice for the next time. So it's, and the other thing that's so beautiful about it is that our pains can become our passions. We can, as we learn and grow from the things that we've experienced, that our mess can be our message. So whether it's something we've done and we've come out on top and overcame it, or whether it's something that's happened to us and we've learned how to transcend it, either way, it's one really perfect circle of learning that we're blessed to have through our Heavenly Father. And then remembering, and I think this is really good for people who have come into our lives in different ways. Remember that humans do things to fulfill our needs, to feel loved, important, belonging, contributing, growth, security, and variety. Like, we're here to help each other and to connect with each other. And if we have that firm foundation in God, then we're able to see ourselves as God sees us. And in turn, then we see others better the way that God sees them. And I think that's such a beautiful thing. All right, next slide. Ben, can we move to the next slide? Oh yeah, go ahead.
Deb, I just
Hi,
wanted to
Roz.
say, hi, darling. How are you?
I'm great.
I'm just loving this. Thank you so much. I just wanted to touch base on the do-overs. You know what? It's given me freedom. It's given me freedom. It's made me feel free, knowing that it's okay to make a mistake. Since I've allowed myself and said, it's okay, Roz. It's okay to make this mistake. You're still loved. And this is what I'm here for, is to learn from this mistake. I feel free.
Oh, I'm right there with you. Thank you so much. So right there with you. Any other thoughts there?
No, I just feel free.
It is liberating, isn't it? So it's so cool. Before I get to these scriptures, it's this whole idea of writing our life story. It's really a proactive approach, right? To addressing the things of our life that may have been painful points, but also a proactive way of looking back and reflecting on our life and the joys that we've had. And in being able to see that contrast, we have the opportunity to choose more of one or the other, right? So I love that. I love that it gives us perspective, right? So what do these scriptures mean to you? I have said, ye are gods, and all of you are children of the Most High. Whew, that just gets me right here. For ye have need of patience, that after ye have done the will of God, ye might receive the promise. Anyone have any insight, any thoughts about either of these scriptures?
I love that, once you've done the work, then you receive, because I feel like that is okay. Like, even like as I try and be like a better, wellness advocate, I feel like that as soon as I start trying, if I listen to somebody like, oh, I did this, I start to feel stressed out. But if I focus on fixing me and trying to do Heavenly Father's will, things just ease and flow. And I feel like that, when we are doing His work or the things that He needs for us to do, I just feel like that everything falls in place. Because part of patience is letting go of our will and accepting His, because we're only impatient or irritated or frustrated because things don't work out according to us. But if we have no agenda other than His agenda, then it does feel ease and flow, because then we're content with what we have done for Him. And that's something that I'm working on right now, because, we do have goals and we do have things that we're working on, but if we allow them to flow with patience, and for me, that's something that I'm working on, is like I said, when I sat in the car and cried for a minute, you know what I mean? Because I really wanted the thing, you know what I mean? Like, just working through that, you know what I mean? Like, if I would have said, okay, obviously there's a purpose here, you know what I mean? And then just continued on, then I wouldn't have had that frustration. But because I was very determined and very much kind of pushing against things, I ended up having just to do it later the right way. And to me, that's important, and something that I'm working on is literally trying to just eyes on the Savior, focusing on love, and that's the goal. That is the goal. Trying to be okay with that.
I really love that you just sat and allowed the emotion to come forth. Because I think so often we think, oh, I'm being so silly, and you just you try to shut it off, but that you allowed yourself to have the cry and to allow that energy and emotion to pass through you, I think is a beautiful thing. And I think we become better at that I think what's happening as we write our life stories, we come to know ourselves better, and we come to see the strengths that we have, and also the weaknesses. And it's interesting, you said the word fix, and someone just talked to me. I was just talking with someone about people, and I don't know if there's anything to fix. We don't have to fix something. It's about an evolution I think that's what it is. It's an evolution. It's going from one degree to the next degree to the next degree of enlightenment and love and knowledge and truth. So, yeah, anyway. Okay, next slide. Okay, fear is not faith. Fear is not faith. Find the truth and rewrite your beliefs. So I think what happens is, you know, when we're children or teens or even adults, sometimes if we haven't come to the place where we are self-aware or awake to ourselves, then we see things in somewhat of a limited, we see things in a limited way. And so when we do awake to ourselves, then we can rewrite the things that we've attached to, beliefs that we've attached to in the past that are not serving us well. So example, anger and frustration. It just hides some sort of fear. Okay. And you know, we have those three voices in our heads. We have our own voice and the voice of truth, of spirit, of God, or there's a voice of Satan. And anytime you are in your brain and you hear words that are like beating you up, the ability to be self-aware and awake to yourself about those things that are being said allows you to understand what the source is of them. And if we can recognize the source, then we can cast them out and recognize, you know, okay, what is this fear emotion? What is it about? You know, what's this anger or frustration about? And what fear is it, you know, encompassing? So when we hear those lies, don't accept them as your own truth, because they're not. God would never speak to you that way. And you would probably not speak to someone else that way unless you are in a fearful state, a painful state. So be confident in God's confidence. Like God is like showering us with all of these faith emotions. Like he wants us to not only experience and feel those, but choose them for ourselves. So when we do have those anger, frustration, blame, justification, and those, we recognize that there are fear or false beliefs under the surface, we can figure out what they are, like what the concern is. Okay. And then look for the fundamental human need that you've been trying to satisfy in an unsupportive way. So can anyone think of a way that they have filled a human need in a way that's not supportive? I can. Yeah. Sometimes it's food. Food, maybe. What else?
Yep. Sex, drugs, alcohol,
Okay.
numbers of things,
Yeah.
lots of things.
Lots of things. What about, yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Ross.
This is a little bit embarrassing, but joining in a conversation that is not nice about someone. I know that with me.
For sure. For sure. I was thinking of like not having healthy boundaries. You know, we think that we need to be important, or we think that by doing X, Y, and Z for someone else that we will feel important, or that will be needed, or whatever. So it could be a boundaries things. Yeah. But the conversation or substances of all kinds, right?
For me,
Yeah.
it's food, of course.
Okay. Yeah.
And for me, that's, I think it's always been a defense or protection.
but it makes me think of people that are anorexic and bulimic. They say that's about power, people that do not feel important or that they have no power.
It's like one thing that they can have control over.
Right.
That they think that they can have control over, and then it ends up
Right.
taking control of them. And that's true of most substances that are abused, right? Is
Right.
that the substance ends up being literally the chains, the bondage. So interesting. Yeah. So if we
And I think-
identify, yeah, go ahead, Pat.
I was going to say also, I think sometimes these substances can be like the sugar or whatever, can be, in any case, if it's not something that's illegal or wrong, it has something that benefits the person. So at that moment, otherwise they wouldn't do it again and again and again. And what happens is they just get caught up in it, and it becomes a habitat or something that is so comforting they don't know how to get out. And then it's like the food and the eating disorders is a very, very, it's a great example. And it's like, but it's a very deep, dark lie about the body being so important. But the other side of the coin is, in an eating disorder, whether it's bulimia, anorexia, obesity, or anything that's causing food to cause the body to be harmed, is a form of pain and suffering that we're doing to ourselves. And it's like, I did that for a long time, and until I accepted it, that was not what I really wanted, I couldn't let it go, because it was so comforting. It had to get to a point of where it was not, it just didn't work anymore. And I had to realize it. And without me becoming aware, as you were talking about earlier, of what was going on, and making that decision of, it is my agency, I'm no longer going to do this, it wouldn't happen, because I didn't know how to be honest with myself about it. I didn't believe God could remove the hunger. That was the problem. And that was when I realized my gifts and my talents were where he wanted me to go, instead of the other place, which was all about fear. I was just trying to get over some anxiety, and I kept, doing what I was doing, and didn't know how to get out of the cycle. But it doesn't matter what the addiction is. It can be a person. Codependency is a huge addiction and problem for people that are trying to get independent. So it's, anyway, thank you.
I agree. Totally agree. In some way, we are, if we're not self-aware, we're just looking for a way to numb or cope. Yes. Yeah. And so it's easy. Like, that's the easy thing to do, is to go to some substance, illegal or not illegal. It could be caffeine. It could be, like you said, sugar. It could be whatever it is. If the thing is this is an interesting topic that we're on, but because I've noticed in myself, some sugar addictions in the past, and I'm way better than I used to be. But it does require you to be self-aware, and it requires you to get to this point where you're understanding that your physical or an emotional, spiritual health is being literally held in bondage.
Yes.
And that's one thing that I've decided for me, is that I don't want to feel like, I don't want to be a slave to anything. I don't want to be a slave to anything. And if I understand that God's love is enough to heal me, to provide some of these human needs, like, he'll show me the way, right? Whether it's through another person or, ultimately it's directly through him, but he will show us the way, and he'll give us the opportunity to fill those needs in healthy ways. Thank you so much, you guys. That was awesome. And being honest with yourself, that's a hard thing to do sometimes. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But writing things down, I think it's a way to do that, where we don't have to feel like we're being put on the spot, or we have to put on airs in front of everyone. It's just you and the paper, right? You and the pen and the paper. So intentionally and proactively choose to develop faith. So that comes with that self-awareness and that understanding what our foundation is, what our beliefs and values are, and how they are helping us become a better and better version of ourselves. And no, your story isn't the worst. Accept it and retell it. Okay? I think there is so much value and so much healing that can happen as you retell your story. But the key is to not retell it so that you can be the victim. You retell it as a victor, right? Like, we don't always have to go into all the little details of everything. Like, this happened, like if we've worked through that in our life story, in our journaling, we've worked through all the details. We don't have to go through every single detail to feel important or to feel like, oh, to like one up people. Do you hear people do that? Like, someone will tell their story and then someone will tell another story and they think it's worse because they want to one up in the worst way.
Yes.
Okay? When we retell it, it needs to be for a purpose, right? To help others know that, hey, I'm human just like you. And here's how we can be a victor. Here's how we can overcome this. Here's how I've overcome this. And maybe this will help you and strengthen you. Beautiful. Okay, next slide. Okay, start at the beginning. Sample writing prompts. What was your family like before your parents got pregnant with you? Were your parents ready and mature? What was your parents' life like when they were pregnant with you? So some of these are really important because when we do energy balancing with faith and the child regression step comes up, these are things that we can learn from writing our life story. And I think it helps us process through them more effectively, maybe, and even faster sometimes when we understand who our parents were and what they experienced before we were born and even while, during gestation. So those are really important things to discover. And I discovered some things that I didn't know when I asked my mom, like, what was life like before I was born? And, what was going on when you were pregnant with me? Those were really kind of cool things. My biological father was gone a lot because he was in the Navy while my mom was pregnant. And I'm sure that she felt somewhat alone. And guess what? That was a theme of my life, as I felt like I felt lonely a lot. So when I was able to write that and kind of work through that and reflect on it, it helped me understand, oh, well, this is how my mom felt. So I must absorb some of those feelings. And then they just perpetuated. And then there would be different triggers, obviously, throughout our lives where that feeling or those emotions are more present or stronger. So asking these questions are really important. Where were you born and how you were received into the world? Was the birth traumatic? Were you anticipated and welcomed warmly? Yeah, Jamie.
So I was born in Sydney, in Australia, when my parents came to Australia only about 2 years, and my parents didn't speak any English, and my mom she went to the hospital for the first time ever, and she was really scared because she didn't know what people were saying, and she didn't have my sister and my brother in a hospital either. She had them at home. So it was a very different experience. And my dad was there for the first time for my birth. He was not there for the other births because it just wasn't something a man would do, you know. And when I came, well, my mom said it was a difficult birth, but at the same time, it was scary. And when I was born, my grandma said, "Oh, is it a girl or a boy?" And they said, "Oh, it's a girl." And then my grandma's like, "Oh, okay, don't worry then." You know, I don't have to tell the rest of the family. You know, so yeah, because when my brother was born, it was like the whole village was celebrating.
Like a
You
big
know,
deal.
yeah, because he was the first boy in his generation from the first boy, which is my dad. You know, and being born a girl kind of affected my whole life.
Well, Jamie, I think you're a big deal. So you
you.
are a big deal.
But funnily enough, like I didn't really see that until I went to the convention, the 10-year convention, the global one, when Emily was talking about her Mulan complex. You know, how she wore pants all the time, and she, you know, had to be powerful as just like the other men. And I was like, oh my gosh.
Like that hit you and you like,
Yeah.
it clicked for you.
It totally clicked. And I was like, I did not feel powerful in a skirt. I really don't. Like, you know, competing with my brother my whole life. So it's just amazing how just even like your birth affected you, how your parents were when they were pregnant, you know, when all of those feelings, it's just amazing how much it affects you.
Yeah. But you can obviously work through that.
Yes,
and learn from it.
Yeah. Totally let that go. I can be powerful in a skirt. I can be powerful in pants. I'm okay with that. I don't need to compete with every guy because he's not my brother, you know. You know, and I don't need to feel the same love as they give to him because I have a different love that they give to me. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Beautiful. I love that so much. So there's lots of questions. You know, where did you spend your childhood? What kind of mistakes you made? Explore them, learn from them. How do you feel about your closest relations, your siblings? How did you feel when new babies were born into your family? Or, you know, maybe there was divorce or different things like that. Any traumas, dramas, you can write about them and learn from them. And then, did your parents encourage you unity and collaboration, or did they model competition and comparison? Because we are being called upon to change some of those false traditions, right? Like once we're aware of them, we shouldn't and we can't keep them to ourselves. We have a responsibility once we're aware to make those shifts and changes in our families so that we don't repeat the negative patterns of the past, because we're here to create more joy and we want to teach our children and their children how to do that. All right, next slide. We're running a little bit over time. Are we okay, Ben? My slide man is taking a break. Next slide. Okay. Impressionable childhood years. Sample writings. Again, lots of questions. This one stood out to me. Did you form attachments to anyone or anything? I just think about my youngest daughter. She had a blanket that a cousin-in-law made for her, and she carried it around until, well, actually she had 2 blankets, one a cousin made and one her grandmother made. And I remember she was like age 4 or 5, something like that. And the first blanket that she had since birth was just ragged. It was just awful. But we just let her keep it and keep it. And we brought the other blanket out, and the new one was purple, and then it had clouds on it. It was just a little quilt thing. And I just remember her transitioning to that new blanket on her own terms. And so I think about those attachments. And if we allow our children to kind of, like, we encourage them, we point them in the right direction, we instill confidence in them, then a lot of times their choices will come at just the right time for them. And I remember she took that old raggedy blanket out and she asked, mommy, if I throw this blanket away, can I have the purple cloud one? I said, of course, honey, you can. So she just did that all on her own. And trust me, I wasn't always the greatest parent, but that was a good one. That was a good, joyful memory, a good parenting moment. So anyway, did you adapt? Did you change? Did you have a hard time with something? What was your family's money or work story? That plays out huge into family traditions. My mom would always say, is that a want or a need? So I grew up subconsciously believing that I could only have what I needed and not have what I wanted. And that belief has really just shifted probably in the last 5 or 6 years. So it's amazing how long, they can affect us in our lives. Okay. And then food, what's your eating story? Like, did your mom make you clean your plate because there are starving children in Africa? Or, what was your food story? Or is mom or dad or someone noticing how much you're eating? And
yes,
like, are you sure? Are you sure you should eat that?
no, it was opposite.
Okay.
Is that all you're eating?
Is that, yeah. But it plays out into life, right?
Oh, it does. It affected me my whole life.
Yeah. And then your health and wellness story, like, is your family active, like generally active, or are they like, you've got to do this and this and this every day? I don't know. Or maybe they were sedentary, people just sat on the couch and watched TV. So I don't know. Whatever your story is, it can play into your beliefs and values and how you've lived your life until you become awakened. And this is part of the purpose of writing your story. Next slide. Okay. Again, teenage years, adulthood. These are formative years, right? Like, where we're forming and learning that we have a choice, we have a say in something. But it's also a time, I think, where we hear a lot of rules. And like, you can't do this, you can't do that. Or it's a time when we get our first job, maybe, or we're making decisions about school or about who we're going to marry and what we imagine being married will be like. Dating, I kind of skipped dating, but dating was kind of important. Anyway, so just a lot of things happening. So these are really good prompts. So we can go back, and watch this recording again and use some of these for prompts. And if anyone wants any of these questions or the slide from the questions, I think it's in one of Jade's courses. And I'm sure that she would let us have access to that. So these are good things to write about. Okay, next slide. Oh, I just saw the last one on the slide before. How does your family measure success? That's a big one. It can play into our lives, you know. Some people, sorry, thank you, Ben. Number 8, yeah, how did your family measure success? Okay, is it getting straight A's? Is it, you know, being having position? Is it being popular? Is it whatever it is? How does your family measure success? And is it healthy? Is it helping you become your highest self? So, and I think we can take good things from those experiences, and we can let go of the not so good. All right, next slide again. Okay. So the beauty of it is that, again, we get to choose to learn from our experiences, or let them be a source of pain or suffering or justification or drama. It's really our choice once we become adults, really, and then especially as we become self-aware and awaken to ourselves and awaken to seeing that, you know, this life is a school, really. So how were your life experiences valuable lessons of love for you now? And what things used to matter a lot but don't have power over you anymore? Do you have any regrets, and what can you learn from them? And what things do you need to unlearn? Yeah. For me, it was that I could have and I could ask for things that I wanted that were important to me. So, and I think God believes that, like, He's created worlds without end, an entire earth with riches and beauty and all kinds of wonderful, beautiful things in it. So just like a loving parent, like I want more and better for my kids than I ever had, I think our Heavenly Father feels that way for us too, is He wants us to have as much as He has. So can we find power and peace? Can we feel more accountable and responsible for our actions, our thoughts, beliefs, and feelings? Yeah, I think we can. I think this is a great exercise to learn how to take 100% responsibility for our lives, and to stand to become agents to ourselves, right? To be more powerful in the choices that we're making. And then how does your life experiences help you find your passion and your purpose? So sometimes people will experience something not wonderful as a child. Maybe they were in the foster child system and now they're an adult and they advocate for foster children. Isn't that a beautiful way to turn your life around? Okay. And we could use that scenario with any sort of mess that we've experienced and turn it into our message. And then what gems of wisdom can you impart to others? And are you more patient and connected to God? For me, I would say yes. Anyone else? As you go through this process of reflecting on your life and writing your story, yeah, Roz, feel more patient, and not just patient with other people, but patient with me. Yeah, patient with myself, like allowing myself the time and the process and the attention to be able to heal, and not only to heal, but to choose behaviors and ways of thinking that lift and edify me, and then turn around and share those things with other people. That's really the beauty of it.
I know.
Any other thoughts here?
Yes, I know that I have become more patient, and everything I have learned has helped me as far as my life. and where I came from. And I also, oh, I lost that thought completely. Sorry.
That's okay. It'll come back to you at just the right time.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Ben, is this the last slide? Or is there another? Okay, here we go. Wishing you all the best.
This is the last
Just so
slide.
you, yeah, that's what I thought. Just so you all know, this is Jade's presentation. Obviously, you can probably tell by her color branding and everything. And I'm just super grateful to be able to have gone through all of this with you. And I hope all of you have learned something for yourself, and that you will take it and apply it, that you'll set aside some time each week to use some of the prompts, or to start chronologically and use some of the prompts to write your life story. And here's a couple of quotes that she shares. It is patience when combined with love that permits us in the process of time to detoxify our disappointments. Patience and love take the radioactivity out of our resentment. I love that so much. And it's so true for me. And I'm sure it's true for other people. We really do feel liberated. We really do feel more free when we get to detox those disappointments and heal from any resentments that we had. And then patience. The dues of discipleship are high indeed, and how much we can take so often determines how much we can then give. Ooh, I love this one. This really hit me really hard. Yeah, sometimes we are called to go through quite a bit, but we are promised that our joy will be as exquisite as our pain. And then I think the beauty is how we can turn around and make of our life something bigger and better and more connecting with other people than it had been in the past. So the dues of discipleship, when we decide who we serve, right? When we decide who we serve, sometimes we're called to go through hard things, or we've chosen to go through hard things premortally before we lived here on this earth, so that we could be a messenger of healing and wholeness. So thanks everyone for all your comments. Were there any other thoughts here as we end? All right, who's gonna write their life story? I'm gonna keep going. Yep.
Thank you, Deb.
Right.
That was amazing. That, you know,